seems that history repeats itself, but not in a good way. We're here stuck in the same loop, not knowing when we might mourn the loss of an entire oppressed population that tried to fight for its basic, fundamental human rights. Time and time again, we see their religious practices, ideals, values, and appearances carve their chances of survival, define their limits, their rights to a good life. I imagine Jaswant Singh Kalra saying, "This stops now." Behind him, those lives whose lights were swallowed by the darkness, their Kimath left unacknowledged, just like dust swept under a rug. Behind the words Lapata, hundreds of thousands of families shackled by the chains of fear and uncertainty, holding on to the hope that those lost will find their way back again, will mend the pain that their absence once caused. Jaswant Singh Kalra's purpose in the world extends far beyond shedding light on the injustices. I now know that I do not need another hashtag Sikh being blocked on Instagram or Twitter, another innocent Sikh life incarcerated, another misrepresentation of a Sikh in the media for me to take a stand for my people. Just as Jaswant Singh Kalra has reminded me, we must always be ready to stand for the truth.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome everybody to the Artist Showcase for Kalra Week. We're so excited to be your hosts. My name is Rupi.
I'm Nois.
And a shout out to the incredible artist Ardas Kaur, a California Sikh-based artist and multidisciplinary designer focusing on human-centered design to bridge the empathy gap. Through her pieces, Ardas aims to destigmatize speaking about mental health, advocating for social justice while inviting others to do the same. Amrit and I are so excited to be your hosts for this evening. So thank you all for watching. Thank you to all the artists for submitting their wonderful pieces, and for the organizers for doing the work, the very difficult work of putting this event on.
Yeah, this is kind of unprecedented. This is the first time Colorado Mission has ever done an artist showcase. And it's hard enough to organize locally, you know, to get volunteers, organizers, vendors, artists, all that sort of stuff. But now with the added burden of trying to do this virtually, internationally, it's hard.
Yeah.
Is what I'm trying to say.
The payoff is amazing because we can all watch, but it is difficult. We were just in rehearsal and people's connections were going off. So just a little bit of a warning. This is a really, homemade project we're putting on here, and homemade as in with lots of love and full of lots of magic. But if somebody drops, if the video stopped playing, you know what? Just laugh along with us.
If you see the mouse going across the screen, just roll with it.
You're going to see a mouse going across the screen. It's going to be okay. It's going to be fun. We have amazing artists lined up. So you know what? You're not even going to notice that mouse.
Yeah, and the cool thing about this is we have folks from all over the world, not even just North America. We have folks from Europe, from South Asia. So this is a really dope mix of generations, locations, artistic disciplines, age groups, just literally a mix of everything that makes, our community beautiful.
Yeah.
And everybody's bringing that here, all kind of under the umbrella of the message of Jaswant Singh Kalra for truth and for justice.
And this is really special for Amrit and I because we grew up in these type of spaces. We were both organizers within the Sikh community, putting on events for many, many years before we started to focus more on our solo artwork. And so becoming a part of this event was really nostalgic because it brought me back to the good old days when we would gather and put on shows.
Yeah, and for some of the artists you see here today, this might be their first time sharing their work. Just like back in the days, for us, it was our first time going up on stage and sharing our work. So if you're able to, in the chat, if you want to drop any supportive comments, if you like any performers, if a quote or a line really resonated with you, drop your virtual snaps, drop your comments in there. We want to make this a very open and inclusive environment.
Yes, and we have to support each other. And art is really how we heal. It's how we make revolutions happen. And Sikhi is such a revolutionary idea, and our artists are so wonderful, and we need to support them by showing up, by following them, by sharing their work, by buying their work. So please, big round of applause for all of the artists, and let's just support and uplift each other today as we remember the wonderful work of Jaswant Singh Kalra.
All right, should we get it started?
Let's start it.
All right.
So the first artist we have is Girl Music, who you've actually seen in person, right?
Yes, yeah. I was in New Jersey last year for a workshop, and Girl Music was there. She was part of it. She performed at the open mic there.
That's really cool.
Super dope. Really, really great vocalist and musician. So I'm really excited to see her performance.
Girl Music is a singer-songwriter and social activist who sings journal entries and releases them onto streaming platforms. She has released many songs, including an introspective EP called Ambivalence, which navigates lonely love as a teenager, which I can relate to. She recently released her first vulnerable single called Therapy, which foreshadows her upcoming album titled Therapy Sessions. Here's Girl Music.
So, I grew up going to Gurmat camp, going to camps where Sangat will come together, we would speak about topics, but I will never forget the day I learned about Jaswant Singh Kalra. Actually, right here, my best friend painted this for me. It says Challenge the Darkness, and the day I learned about Jaswant Singh Kalra, I wrote a song right away called Challenge the Darkness. He taught me what it means to be a Sikh, what it means to be a human being, and that's our duty, to stand up when no one else is standing up, to challenge our inner darknesses and outer darknesses within us and around us every single day. So I had the power to, or at least the motivation to release this song called Challenge the Darkness, which I played for you a little bit earlier, just a little snippet. I deleted it, probably gonna bring it back somehow, some way, so stay tuned. But I helped raise money for an organization I was working for at the time called Students Helping Honduras, and I think that's my power. I think my power is to be able to create art and to use it for good, to use it for social justice. So basically the next piece that I'm going to be playing for you is called Therapy. Therapy is off of my new album called Therapy Sessions. It's releasing this month, actually. Therapy released just this week, so check it out on Spotify, iTunes, the works. Very excited about it. It's a deep song, so it took me a lot to release it, for sure. But it's about challenging your inner darknesses every single day. We all have our inner demons. We all have our scary things going on in our life, but we have to make sure that we challenge it and be okay with the uncomfortable. Sometimes it's uncomfortable for me to release this music, but I knew that I needed to be okay with it so other people could help cope and know that they're not alone. So yeah. And I think it's a huge thing to make sure that we know that it's okay and it's actually productive and healthy to ask for help. We take care of our physical bodies, hopefully you all are taking care of your physical bodies, but if you take care of your physical bodies, you also have to take care of your mental. So I'm gonna stop talking because I could go on and on about this kind of stuff, but here's Therapy for you. Undercover suffocating, painful hours, dreams are fading. I wanna grab the tears trapped in my eyes. I hope that this sky, yeah. Undercover's trying to get out.
This painting, entitled Shaheed Jaswant Singh Kalra, was created by artist Kanwar Singh. It chronicles the life's work of human rights activist Shaheed Jaswant Singh Kalra and the events of the Bloody Decade from 1984 to 1995 in Punjab. It depicts how government forces operated with complete impunity to end the Khalistan movement, and in doing so, carried out the secret murders of thousands of its own citizens, many of them complete innocents.
This portrait of Jaswant Singh Kalra and the state of Punjab speaks to the loss of humanity when power is asserted through terror and violence. In those desperate times, the Guru inspires great souls who act as our protectors, saving us from being engulfed by total darkness. In an inspirational speech, which was to be his last, Jaswant Singh Kalra declared, "I challenge the darkness. If nothing else, then at least around myself I will not let it settle. Around myself I will establish light."
In 1995, Jaswant Singh Kalra was forcefully abducted, tortured, and murdered by Indian security forces for his work as a human rights activist working in Punjab. Kalra had uncovered and proved the widespread occurrence of thousands of state-sanctioned secret executions and illegal cremations of Sikhs across Punjab, referred to as disappearances. The state police, aided by various government forces, were intent on stamping out the Khalistan movement for an independent Sikh nation through any means necessary. A reign of state-sponsored terror flowed across Punjab for nearly a decade with complete impunity, accompanied by official government denials of the ground reality. Security forces rounded up countless innocent Sikhs across the Punjab countryside.
Many never saw their homes again as they were tortured and executed while in detention. Some of these extrajudicial detentions and murders were covered up by the authorities in the form of staged encounters with weapons placed on bodies for the purpose of a media campaign against the Sikh independence movement. Countless other victims were disposed of secretly in city cremation grounds without the awareness of their families, their entire existences erased. Though many knew this was going on, without proof of these occurrences, there could be no way to bring them to the world's attention.
Jaswant Singh Kalra was a witness to this encroaching darkness which was engulfing Punjab in a state of terror, and driven by this knowledge, he chose to be a light for humanity. He summoned immense courage, a gift of the divine will, and consciously walked the dark path which lay before him. Risking his life, he collected undeniable proof of the slaughter, uncovering and documenting the identities of thousands of disappeared Sikhs who had been killed and illegally cremated by the state. His work gave closure and solace to countless grieving families who had no way of knowing what happened to their missing loved ones. Jaswant Singh Kalra then traveled to the UK and Canada to expose the massive scale of these murders and brought international awareness to the fact that state authorities were undeniably behind the illegal detention and killings of its own citizens.
Though warned by friends not to return to Punjab, Jaswant Singh Kalra was abducted by security forces on September 6, 1995, outside his home. He too was murdered and disappeared through the very same state mechanisms that he had sought to expose. His work, however, played a major role in ensuring that truth finally prevailed. Too often, the governing powers lose all sense of humanity and assert power solely through terror. In those times, all that saves us from being engulfed by complete darkness are those rare, God-inspired souls like Jaswant Singh Kalra, who stand against such darkness of the human heart, offering up their lives to be a light for truth and humanity.
And as mentioned, this painting was created by Kanwar Singh, who is the artist behind Art of Punjab. Since beginning his work in 2007, his goal has been to create a legacy of work which will give Sikh history a prominent place in the homes and hearts of the community. The key to this art is the gift of storytelling. He has an ability to create stories which we have always known, but with a grandeur that goes beyond anything previously seen. The strength of his imagination is such that once he depicts a seminal moment in Sikh history, it becomes difficult to imagine it differently.
It's been incredible to see Art of Punjab, Kanwar's work everywhere, spreading across the world like wildfire, really, in people's homes and every single Gurdwara that I've been to.
Yeah, I have a painting of his in my house. That's there are a lot of local Gurdwaras, art galleries have his work featured, which has been awesome to see. But again, another thing I want to touch on too is It's a reoccurring thing that comes up in a lot of pieces that you'll notice throughout the night is that phrase challenging the darkness.
Yes.
So that actually comes from Just Once in Colorado speech that he did here in Ontario at Dixie Gurdwara in Mississauga.
What with the one that your dad saw, right?
Yeah, so I didn't even know this until recently, but my dad was actually there at Dixie Gurdwara when Just Once in Colorado did that speech.
Wow.
So it shows, this is not long ago history. This is still very much recent history, and this is still going on today. Not even just in Punjab, but across the world. There's so many injustices, and I think the story of why Just Once in Colorado, why I feel it resonates so much, is because he was just a regular guy. He came across this information and he said, I have to do something about this. And I think that speaks to the power we all have to make change and to speak up for what's right.
And I think it just goes to show how much our struggle is also similar, but perhaps in different ways. But this struggle also lives in so many other communities, so many communities that we consider allies. And so if you haven't seen that speech, Just Once in Colorado's last speech at Dixie Gurdwara, please go on YouTube and watch it immediately. You will be so inspired. So next up, we have Amrit Kaur. Born and bred in London, UK, Amrit Kaur is a sarangi player, singer-songwriter, and vocalist in the genres of Punjabi folk and soul. She's a BBC music introducing artist and recently featured in the new version of Bob Marley's iconic song One Love alongside the Marley family for UNICEF.
That's big.
It's so cool. I'm just so proud of, I've seen Amrit, I've known her for a couple of years now, and her work and her music is constantly evolving, and she's been taking it to the next level year after year. And every time I come across her work, she's just done something bigger and more incredible, and I'm so inspired. Her notable performances include Glastonbury Festival, which is on my bucket list. Is it on your bucket list?
Yes.
UN General Assembly with Skip Marley and Jaipur Literature Festival, described as a place where Punjabi folk meets Aretha soul. Amrit's music is influenced by the women's history and culture of Punjab and the powerhouse vocalists that have come from that region. We hope you enjoy her music.
की जाना मैं कौन।
ਉਹ ਦਰਦ ਮੇਰੀ ਦਾ ਜਾਇਆ ਜਿਸ ਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਨਾਰਾ ਲਾਇਆ ਲਾ ਵਾਰਿਸ ਕਹਿ ਕੇ ਸਾੜੀਆਂ ਲਾਸ਼ਾਂ ਦਾ ਉਹ ਵਾਰਿਸ ਬਣ ਕੇ ਆਇਆ ਕਈ ਭੇਤ ਵੀ ਉਹਨੇ ਖੋਲੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਸਿਵੇ ਆਣ ਫਰੋਲੇ ਸਿਵਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਤੁਕਦੀ ਧੂਣੀ ਜੋ ਮਾਵਾਂ ਦੇ ਪੁੱਤਰ ਬੋਲੇ ਨਹਿਰਾਂ ਰੋਹੀਆਂ ਚੁਰਾਹਿਆਂ ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਬੰਨ ਕੇ ਮਾਰ ਮੁਕਾਇਆ ਲਾ ਵਾਰਿਸ ਕਹਿ ਕੇ ਸਾੜੀਆਂ ਲਾਸ਼ਾਂ ਦਾ ਉਹ ਵਾਰਿਸ ਬਣ ਕੇ ਆਇਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਸੀਨੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੀੜਾ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਰਸਤਾ ਬਹੁਤਾ ਭੀੜਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਹੰਝੂ ਪੂੰਝਣ ਲਈ ਇਕੱਲਾ ਹੀ ਤੁਰ ਪਿਆ ਹੀਰਾ ਸੀ ਸਿਰੜੀ ਤੇ ਬੇਖੌਫ ਬੜਾ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਕਈਆਂ ਨੇ ਧਮਕਾਇਆ ਲਾ ਵਾਰਿਸ ਕਹਿ ਕੇ ਸਾੜੀਆਂ ਲਾਸ਼ਾਂ ਦਾ ਉਹ ਵਾਰਿਸ ਬਣ ਕੇ ਆਇਆ ਹੋਈ ਹਾਕਮਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤਕਲੀਫ ਬੜੀ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਰੋਕਣ ਦੀ ਤਜਵੀਜ਼ ਕੜੀ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਐ ਸੱਚ ਜਾਣਦਾ ਕਿ ਰਾਹਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈ ਮੌਤ ਖੜੀ ਹੱਸ ਹੱਸ ਕੇ ਮੌਤ ਵਿਆਹ ਲਿੱਤੀ ਉਹ ਰੱਤਾ ਵੀ ਨਾ ਘਬਰਾਇਆ ਲਾ ਵਾਰਿਸ ਕਹਿ ਕੇ ਸਾੜੀਆਂ ਲਾਸ਼ਾਂ ਦਾ ਉਹ ਵਾਰਿਸ ਬਣ ਕੇ ਆਇਆ ਲਾ ਵਾਰਿਸ ਕਹਿ ਕੇ ਸਾੜੀਆਂ ਲਾਸ਼ਾਂ ਦਾ ਉਹ ਵਾਰਿਸ ਬਣ ਕੇ ਆਇਆ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
Okay.
Yo, super dope.
Are we all obsessed with Live Good or what?
I think we are.
When I first saw that video, I was in tears and I was like, can I have her as a baby, please? And I have so much hope for the next generation because of kids like Liv Kaur.
Yeah, super talented. So just a little bit more information on Liv Kaur. She is 9 years old. 9 years old, and she's got that level of talent. Incredible.
And 9 years old, I don't even want to tell you what I was doing at 9 years old. It was nothing close to what Liv Kaur is doing at 9 years old.
So originally from Atlanta, Georgia, but now living in Oakville, Ontario. Shout out to Oakville. Liv has been reciting Punjabi poetry since she was young and now is learning to sing Punjabi folk. She loves animals, art, and reading, and her favorite characters are Harry Potter and Tintin. So shout out Tintin. She also serves as a test lab for her mother's books, The Fascinating Folk Tales of Punjab. Liv was introduced to Jaswant Singh Kalra at the age of 5 when she recited a poem at the commemoration of his disappearance at an Atlanta Gurdwara. Lately, she came to know all about him through reading chapters of her mother's upcoming book, The Valiant. And that poem that she just recited was by Manveer Singh Mand.
Liv, we need to hang out after this. I'm so glad that you're no longer living in Atlanta, Georgia. Oakville and Brampton were basically neighbors, so please come hang
15 minutes
out.
down the road. Come chill.
Next up, we have Gorligraphy. Gorligraphy Designs is a Bay Area artist who strives to help connect Sangat to Gurbani and the Gurmukhi script through art. Her team comprises of 2 other like-minded Gaurs who she met while completing her university education. Here is Gorligraphy.
This piece is a tribute to Sardar Jaswant Singh Kalra and his daughter Navkiran Kaur. Growing up, Navkiran Kaur's passion to carry her father's legacy inspired Gorligraphy. In this photo, the young girl who is carrying the same yellow files as Sardar Jaswant Singh represents not only Navkiran Kaur, but all of the daughters of the Sikh Panth who look up to Jaswant Singh Kalra and carry his legacy forward in their own way.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. My name is Anmol Brar. I'm a visual artist from the Bay. I was blessed with an enlightening opportunity to make art for Cholera Week. I say enlightening because before August, I had no idea of who Jaswant Singh Kalra was. Sure, I may have heard the name or seen a snippet of his speech in Ontario over Twitter, but I never knew exactly who he was or why he was important. Making my art pushed me to learn for myself and to develop a better understanding. In my piece, I chose to focus on the work that Jaswant Singh Kalra did. He was a vital voice that spoke up against human rights issues that were happening in India at the time. Specifically, the illegal murders and cremations of 25,000 Sikhs, which is what I chose to focus on for my submission. In the artwork, the man is depicted without eyes to show that this could have been anyone. The target was somebody with a turban and a beard. The fire symbolizes not only the cremations, but also the attempt to erase the existence of Sikhs. The Singh is there, untouched by the flames, to show that we are strong and still here. I would like to thank the people behind Cholera Mission for organizing this event and giving people like me the opportunity to learn more about important figures from our community. Thank you.
So as mentioned, that piece was created by Anmol Brar, who's a visual artist from California. He makes daily creations that you can find on Instagram, and the tag was there at Anmol Brar. And I think what he was saying really resonates. You know, he was someone that came across Just One Thing Cholera fairly recently, and his message still hits every bit as relevant as it did, you know, back in '95.
For sure. And I think it just goes to show how events like this are so important, because we cannot forget the revolutionaries within our community. And I feel like every year, every day, we need to honor the people who've done the work to get us here today, so that every Sikh child knows who Jaswant Singh Kalra is.
And then carries that same light going forward.
Exactly.
For sure.
So next up is me, and I am going to ask Amrit to just, you know, step over to the side.
Move over there somewhere.
I realize it's really awkward if I perform and he just sits there. Like, does he look at the floor? Does he look at the screen? But honestly, it's like these type of really funny things that makes hosting and these sort of events really fun, is just like the sort of like makeshift, do it yourself vibe. So I want to start off with a piece that I wrote for 1984 this year. So let me just pull it up. Honestly, I wasn't even going to read this piece, but as we were chatting, I decided to I was like, why not? Let me just pull it up. This piece I started writing it last year around November, and I finished it up in June, and it's going to be published in my new book. It's called Never Forget 1984. I have a very complicated relationship with the country I was born in. Our men were slaughtered in those streets. Our women raped. Thousands were murdered and disappeared by police. The Indian state tries to hide what they did, but no amount of yoga or Bollywood could make me forget the Sikh genocide they orchestrated. I will never be quiet about the way my people died so that I could be free. I live because they resisted for me. This next piece is a new spoken word poem that I'm gonna share with you. This is my second time reading it. I read it for a group of Sikh women maybe 2 months ago. It was a Jakarta event, and it was the sweetest group of young Sikh women, and it felt like the perfect time to share it, and now I'm sharing it for a second time with all of you. It's called A Lifetime on the Road, and the piece is about my dad being a truck driver here in this country, and just his journey and all the hard work that he does, along with all of the countless parents within our community who came from such difficult backgrounds. My father was a refugee into Canada and struggled a lot as a newcomer, and just seeing that immigrant hustle and that immigrant struggle and has been really inspiring to me. And every time I see videos of Jaswant Singh Kalra, I'm sort of just reminded of all of the hard work that my mom and dad do every single day to keep us going. So this piece is called A Lifetime on the Road. And usually I have pieces memorized, but because I just finished this piece last week, I haven't really got around to doing that yet. But stay tuned. Once the new book is out, I'm gonna produce it, add some music, do the whole thing. Lifetime on the road. While I was growing up, my dad worked 6 days a week driving an 18-wheeler truck from one end of the continent to the other. He'd come home after a week on the road while my siblings and I would be sleeping. The sound of the front door always woke me. The basement we lived in was small. I could hear Mum in the kitchen making him a fresh meal of dal and roti. Dad would eat, shower, settle into bed. But as soon as his eyes drifted off, his boss would call and say, "Get back on the road again." And just like that, we'd catch a glimpse of Dad leaving. When you're an immigrant, you keep your head down and you stay working. When you're a refugee and you don't have papers, when they call you illegal, outsider, terrorist, towel head, you work until your bones become dust. You are the only one you can count on. I can't imagine the conditions he's seen. Every time he started at a new company, he'd spend months working for free during their mandatory training period. Funny how they needed to train a man who was fully licensed, qualified, and experienced. After the 3rd month of not taking a penny home, Dad would demand compensation and they'd offer him 5 cents for every mile he drove. Years ago, while driving a load from Montreal to Florida, he ended up at a hospital somewhere in the middle of America with his appendix moments away from bursting. When the doctor told him they had to get him into surgery immediately, he looked at her and said, "I can't afford it. Can this wait until I get back home to Canada?" "Well, when do you get back home?" the doctor asked. "In 3 days," he responded. And she looked at him like he must be out of his mind. Luckily, she didn't have it in her to let him risk his life. She performed the surgery for free that night. And you want to know what my dad did right after they stitched him up? He walked out of the hospital, climbed into his truck, finished the delivery, and spent 3 days driving back home. "Why would you put yourself through that?" I asked. He shrugs his shoulders and tells me, "My boss wouldn't get me a flight home. Where would I leave my truck? I couldn't drive back with a trailer full of undelivered car parts and risk losing my job." While listening to him, all I can think is that no one should have to work to the bone like that. It breaks me into pieces to hear about every person who grinds for less than what they're worth. How do we sleep at night, knowing the systems we uphold treat the foundations of our society as second-class citizens when they are the reasons the wheels of this world stay turning? I want to give my dad a lifetime of peace for the lifetime he spent on the road to feed us. I want him to know what comfort feels like. I want him to see that he's done enough. Thank you. What's so insane is this man is still working 6 days a week right now. And it's been like decades. And he's going to be home tonight. So I will definitely, find my own awkward way of saying thank you. Because, awkward Punjabi dad and daughter relationship where you don't really know how to show affection. Yeah, that sort of thing. You know how it is. So next up, we have Charnpreet Kaur, who recently started creating digital art last month. Being a STEM major, she was not able to explore her artistic side during undergrad. When she heard about this opportunity, she was excited to create something meaningful and share her dad's story, but she's also nervous to showcase her art publicly. First of all, Charnpreet Kaur, how did you just start making art last month and this piece is so incredible? It's insane. So I need you to do all of us a favor and never stop making work. Because if you could do that, what you made for this event in just a month, imagine all of the wonderful, magical things you're going to make in 2 months, 6 months, in a year. Here's Sharnpreet Kaur.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. The following contains mention of police brutality, abuse, and gun violence.
ਸਿਆਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਦਿਨ ਸੀ, ਅਸੀਂ ਘਰੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੈਠ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ, ਮੇਰੇ ਫਾਦਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਸਾਰੇ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਬੈਠੀ ਸੀ, ਖਾ ਪੀ ਕੇ ਸੌਣ ਦਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਸੀ। ਜਦ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਦੇਖਿਆ, ਅਸੀਂ ਖੂਹ 'ਤੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਖੇਤਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਘਰ ਸੀ ਸਾਡਾ। ਜਦ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਤਾਂ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਕੰਧਾਂ ਟੱਪ ਕੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਆ ਗਈ। ਜਦੋਂ ਅੰਦਰ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਉਂਦਿਆਂ ਸਾਰ ਹੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਅਤੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਫਾਦਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੂੰ ਫੜ ਲਿਆ। ਫੜ ਕੇ ਤਾਂ ਪੁੱਛਣ ਲੱਗ ਪਏ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਕੁਛ ਸਮਾਨ ਪਿਆ ਕਿਸੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਦਾ। ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਵੀ ਸਮਾਨ ਹੁਣ ਸਿੰਘ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਸੀ, ਲੰਗਰ ਪਾਣੀ ਛਕ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸੀ, ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸਮਾਨ ਵੀ ਰੱਖ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸੀ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸੀ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਅਸਲਾ ਵਗੈਰਾ ਉਹ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਅਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਥਾਣੇ ਲੈ ਗਏ। ਜਦ ਥਾਣੇ ਲੈ ਗਏ ਤਾਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਲਿਜਾ ਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲੀ ਇੰਟੈਰੋਗੇਟ ਕੀਤਾ। ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਪੁੱਠਾ ਟੰਗ ਲਿਆ, ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਮੈਂ ਪਾਣੀ ਮੰਗਿਆ, ਪਾਣੀ ਪਿਲਾ ਕੇ ਫਿਰ ਟੰਗ ਦਿੱਤਾ। ਫਿਰ ਮੈਂ ਪਾਸਡ ਆਊਟ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ। ਫਿਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਵੀ ਕੀ ਹੋਇਆ ਕੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਇਆ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਨੂੰ 4-5 ਘੰਟੇ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ 'ਚ ਸੁਰਤ ਆਈ ਅਤੇ ਜਿਸ ਰੂਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਂ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ, ਉੱਥੇ ਇੱਕ ਸਿੰਘ ਹੋਰ ਸੀ, ਉਹਦੀ ਲੱਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੋਲੀ ਲੱਗੀ ਹੋ ਸੀ ਅਤੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਦੇ ਕੀੜੇ ਪਏ ਹੋ ਸੀ। ਉਹ ਜੈਲ ਕਰਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਵੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਰਿਸ਼ਤੇਦਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਮਾਰ ਦਿਓ, ਕਿਉਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਤਰਸਾਉਣ ਡਏ ਆ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਲਾਈਫ ਤੋਂ ਐਂਡ ਕਰ ਦਿਓ ਮੇਰਾ। ਤਾਂ ਸੇਮ ਨਾਈਟ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਗਏ। ਉਦੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ 'ਚ ਉਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਇਆ ਫਿਰ, ਅਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਹੋ ਗਈ। ਕੁਛ ਹਾਈਅਰ ਰੈਂਕ ਦੇ ਆਫਿਸਰ ਸੀਗੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਹੋਣ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਤੀਜੇ ਦਿਨ ਫਿਰ ਛੱਡ ਦਿੱਤਾ। ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛਦੇ ਕੀ ਸੀ ਵੀ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਂ ਦੱਸ। ਜੇਕਰ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਂ ਦੱਸਦੇ ਸੀ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਤਾਂ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਹੀ ਕਨੈਕਟਡ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਸੀ। ਐਸੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੀ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਨਿਕਲੇ ਮੂੰਹ 'ਚੋਂ, ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਫਿਰ ਛੱਡ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਦੂਜੀ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਹਾਈ ਰੈਂਕ ਤੋਂ ਵੀ ਹੋ ਗਈ। ਮੇਰੇ ਫਾਦਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ 6 ਦਿਨ ਬਾਅਦ ਹੀ ਘਰੇ ਗਏ। ਅਤੇ ਪਰ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਧੱਕਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਸਾਡੀ ਕੌਮ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ, ਕੋਈ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਦਾ ਰਿਜ਼ਲਟ ਕੱਢਣਗੇ। ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਧੱਕਾ ਹੋਇਆ।
To think that this happened, not only to my family, but to tens of thousands of others, is heart-wrenching. They were detained, tortured, killed, and unlawfully cremated at the hands of police and security forces, coupled with the Indian government. There was a clear pattern to these arrests, often described as a mere suspicion that there was a link to armed Sikh opposition groups, whether it be having information about them or harboring them, just as my father described. In reality, this was a hidden veil to the clear agenda of targeting young Sikh men, a gradual genocide. When Jaswant Singh Kalra began investigating these disappearances and murders, he was subject to threats from corrupt government officials, which ultimately resulted in his abduction and murder in 1995. My art piece depicts his last speech, where he led with a fable highlighting the power of truth and light against darkness. I carefully curated the piece as a cohesive capture of his essence and his story. The absence of his lips symbolizes the attempt to silence him. In spite of this, the inclusion of his powerful words, "I challenge the darkness," on the black background represents his eternal message that lives on today, regardless of those who try to silence him. His pursuit of justice and truth was a light in the darkness cast by those in power. The white luminescent line connecting his timeless message to his name is a reminder of the legacy he has left behind. The colors blue and orange represent Sikhi and the fight for freedom. This artwork is meaningful to me not only because of the powerful impact he had, but also because of the close personal history. Jaswant Singh Kalra was a beacon of hope and justice for countless families who lost their loved ones, and if not for certain circumstances, my father and grandfather's names would be one of those who were lost. I hope one day justice is served to all of the families. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Hi friends, my name is Kavalpreet Kaur. I'm a student and an activist based in Delhi, and I'm really thankful to Kalra Mission Group who have organized this wonderful event in remembrance of Mr. Jaswant Singh Kalra. I was in college when I got to know about Mr. Kalra and his work, and I can say it is for people like him, it is for his courage that today we know about the atrocities that were committed in Punjab. We know about the human rights violations that happened in Punjab. And unfortunately, in 1995, he was picked up from his house and he was also subsequently killed. But his legacy and the inspiration that he has given to all of us continues to live. And I'm going to share a poem with you. It's titled as Saman. I wrote this poem when in the month of May, when Delhi Police Special Cell deals with the terror cases, they came to my house twice in a week and decided the investigation into the Northeast violence that happened in the month of February this year in Delhi, the Northeast Delhi case. And we have been seeing the arrest of so many students, specifically the Muslim students and the students from Jamia and the other activists. Every day, hundreds of our friends, hundreds of students, professors and activists are being summoned to police stations, even in the middle of the pandemic. And all of this is being done for the sole purpose to punish the people who stood for love, to punish the people who stood for the secular ethos of this country, who are saying that we cannot accept religious-based citizenship in the country. And this poem that I'm going to recite is actually a conversation that I'm having with a police officer who has come to my neighborhood and is searching for my house, is looking for my house, and my house is numbered as house number 17. So here I go, and I hope you like it. Patchy and soiled walls and a roof of tin. Yes, sir, this is the house number 17. Branches of shehtoot at the entrance greets with the soft chirrups of sparrows. In a corner stands perennial gulmohar as a site of enduring humanity. From these tiny green buds of the royal tree, I learned the virtue of integrity, and those red flowers, delicate and soft, taught me to value humility. Be cautious. Be cautious to not step on the fruits of jamun. From the march of your heavy boots, fallen and separated, they bleed purple on the floor, and like memories of people, their imprints are difficult to foreclose. Please, please do not hit the black dog if he sees you and wails his tail. Kind like his master, he never betrays. Let him sleep in peace at the gate. He hasn't disturbed any, so you don't have to be afraid. And beneath the canopy of those big fern leaves, and beneath the canopy of those big fern leaves, my heart opened to love and beauty. My heart opened to love and beauty, not knowing when love became an act of crime. Not knowing when love became an act of crime, forbidden, condemned, and to be charged in the present time. Forbidden, condemned, and to be charged in the present time. Welcome. Welcome, officer. Now you're right at my door to issue me summon under section 174. Welcome, officer. Now you're right at my door to issue me summon under section 174. Is this how others in the past had also gone? Is this how others in the past had also gone? Never to return back to their own home. Never to return back to their own home. This is how you took so many teens. This is how you took away so many teens, never again in their houses to be seen. Evening descends slowly. Evening descends slowly as the night blooming jasmine fills the moonlit sky. Evening descends slowly as a night blooming jasmine fills the moonlit sky. Like the leaves of the trees, poetry sleeps. Poetry sleeps like the leaves of the trees, only to rise once again as smoke in many more houses. Only to rise again as smoke in many more houses, like it did in the house number 17. Like it did in the house number 17. Thank you, and I wish the Kalra Mission Group all the best for the future, and I hope collectively we can fight and stand for the principles of justice, equality and love that Mr. Kalra also fought for. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Galwappreet Kaur. Galwappreet Kaur is an Indian student activist. She has led various movements on gender and student issues in India and is a vocal critique of human rights violations in India. She also writes on student and gender issues. I've been following Galwappreet Kaur's work for quite some time on Twitter, and she is on the ground doing the work and giving actual, truthful, real updates about what's happening in India with all the human rights violations that have been taking place over this entire year. So follow her work. She's super inspiring. And as people who are part of the diaspora, I feel like seeing activists on the ground there take the lead has been really, it's been really amazing, and following their lead, because they really can tell us what's actually happening and what they need from us.
Yeah, their voice is so important. And just going back to, I want to just touch on Janpreet Kaur's piece as well. You know, that it's so powerful that she spoke to her dad and her grandfather to understand their story and to retell it. And I feel within our own families, there's so much of that history that is suppressed.
Right.
It's not talking about.
Yeah.
It's not spoken about. You know, earlier or the past couple of years, I've been making more of an effort to, to speak to the older generations, and these stories come up. You know, you hear about people that were harassed by the police in the 80s, or, on my wife's side of the family, there was someone that was captured and tortured by police and let go. And these stories are so commonplace, but they're just not spoken of. So I really want to commend Janpreet Kaur for, putting that forward and sharing her family history and putting it out there.
I feel like, and I don't know if this is something that a lot of people feel, but there's almost like this shame of not wanting to talk about the violence too much, like not wanting to talk about 1984 too much. And I don't know if that's like it's sort of like projected onto us from like, the Indian government side or whatever it is, but it's almost like I've been told personally when I've talked about 84 and the violence that we've gone through, I've been told, oh, get over it, or can you guys just forget about it? Or it wasn't that bad, the numbers aren't that bad. And I feel like those things growing up, hearing those, made me super quiet about it at certain times. Although I've always been vocal, but I always thought, ooh, am I wrong? Was it not that bad? And that's why we need to speak up more, because Noise just shared a story with me about his family, and I was telling him that a similar situation that happened to Janpreet Kaur's dad happened to my father. And we have to keep using our voices, because they want us to be ashamed. They want to convince us that this didn't happen or it wasn't that bad. And we can't allow them to take a genocide and try to minimize it to a riot.
Very well said. Yeah. So I guess just moving along, we're gonna go on to the next artist. This artist is an MC named Sajana from California. So we're gonna get into that. A little bit of hip hop, which is cool.
Hey, my name is Sajin, also known as Sajana. I'm from Santa Clara, California, or the Bay Area, that is. And just wanted to make it clear at first that by no means am I an activist. I don't deserve that title. I guess I'm just a sometimes writer, sometimes poet, most of the times rapper, just rapping what I feel, whatever comes to my heart. But I would say Shaheed Jaswant Singh Kalra Ji impacted me heavily, especially in my teenage years. And when I take the lessons I learned from his speeches and I apply it to the things happening in the Panth right now, that intersection is what sort of inspired this verse I'm about to perform for you right now. So without further ado, let me go ahead with the verse. And shout out to Legitimate, another Sadar kid from the Bay. And well, y'all know me. It's Sajana once again. And thanks to Colorado Mission. Hashtag Free Juggy Now. Yeah, it's free Juggy now till we die. Come election time, all they talk is human rights, but this shit would have been different if his skin was colored white. Tortured in the night, they don't care about his life, yeah. Yeah, it's free Juggy now till we die. Come election time, all they talk is human rights, but this shit would have been different if his skin was colored white. Tortured in the night, they don't care about his life. Is it a crime to educate about your history? Why they threatened by this man, it's a mystery. A UK citizen, but where's his liberty? Them ignoring his case is adding insult to injury. I ain't quick to be offended, are you feeling me? But if you question my motives, pay attention please. They put a fake case on a window inquiry, and then you're trying to brag about an Indian democracy. Spreading the truth puts the pressure on oppressors. If they really weren't guilty, then they wouldn't even sweat it. Not scared of the man, they're scared of the message. You might silence a lamb, you can't silence our expression. Now there's 6 for revolution and there's 6 within that country. And I get it, y'all ain't always have the same beliefs, but after all, can we please agree that a man has the right to freely speak? What do you believe? Yo, there's power in our numbers, they can't take us all. They tried it once before, can't take a line's roll. And look at him, 1,000+ days in the pen, still smiling like a gem, innocent to the end, yeah. Innocent to the end, yeah. Innocent to the end, yeah. Yeah, innocent to the end, yeah. Check it. Yo, it's free Juggy now till we die. Come election time, all they talk is human rights, but this shit would have been different if his skin was colored white. Tortured in the night, they don't care about his life, yeah. Yeah, it's free Juggy now till we die. Come election time, all they talk is human rights, but this shit would have been different if his skin was colored white. Tortured in the night, they don't care about his life, yeah. Nah. It's your boy Sajana, you know. I just want to shout out everyone for being here today, and thank you. That's pretty much it.
It's like I'm seeing history repeat, and how I'm finding more to say is still a mystery to me. Ziggy whipping the beats, enlisting me to spit this heat from Blue Star to Oak Creek and everything that's in between. Is nothing sacred? Will we ever stop the presses? That's why we had the temple with a sword on our possession. My life's threatened when I'm trying to cop a blessing. Yelling out jagadas cause it's time to call attention. And then we wonder why they blaming us. The CIA installing dictators taking up the role of service to their people, then betraying trust. How could they turn their back on what was such a sacred love? What good is practicing contrition, putting yourself right back in disastrous positions? Factor in the lessons, don't get wrapped up in the present, and learn from your past or you'll get trapped within his clenches. Yo, what's up? My name is Skepsis. I'm a member of a hip-hop group called Zoetic Minds, and the piece I just recited is from our song called The Creed. I chose to rap it for this showcase because I feel like it really speaks to the mission of this event. The piece I just rapped discusses the consistent persecution and attacks that Sikhs have faced especially in recent history, from the events of 1984 to all the way to the Oak Creek Massacre here in the United States. Thank you for listening once again. Skepsis from Zoetic Minds.
And as mentioned, that was Skepsis, a sick hip hop artist from San Jose, California. He's released 4 albums as a member of the group Zoetic Minds. Along with documenting his own experiences, Skepsis strives to provide a humanizing voice for marginalized communities through the social commentary in his lyrics. Shout out Skepsis. I had the opportunity to work with him for a track called The Vanguard. Yeah, super dope artist from the Bay.
Where can everybody listen to Vanguard?
You can check it out, Spotify, Bandcamp, wherever you stream music. It's from his album Persona Non Grata, from the Zoetic Minds album.
Amazing. Wow, those last 2 performances got me really hyped. I'm very excited. There's just so much love, talent, and magic in our community, and I love seeing all of you sharing your work. So thank you. Next up, we have Sonam. Sonam is a visual storyteller through the medium of film and digital photography. She lives in Vancouver, British Columbia, and is a registered nurse. Her aim is to capture people as their true, authentic self.
Hi everybody, my name is Sonam. I'm a photographer in Vancouver. So the photos I submitted were from actually an exhibit that was held in Vancouver called Lapata, which means missing. There was a photographer that went in India and shot these families that were left behind. Essentially their family members, their sons or daughters, whoever, were missing and murdered. So this exhibit had these photographs put up there. So for me as a photographer, it was important for me to go and see this exhibit because it's part of our history, being a Punjabi Sikh woman. And it was so nuanced. The energy was palpable in the room. I went with a friend and we were both very emotional looking at these photos. It was just beautiful. And there's one in particular, which is the main one that I'm submitting, is a man is looking at a grandma, and she has a young, it looks like her grandchild is a daughter, and she's sitting on her laps, and the granddaughter is smiling, but the grandma has this look, this steely look in her face of just sheer determination and just strength. And it was it just captured your attention. It was the main artwork in the exhibit, and I'm so happy I got to capture this moment of this man looking at this amazing photograph. So there's one where there's just a faint dark outline of a boy who I believe is actually the exhibit organizer's son. And in the back, there's a family sitting on a manja, looks like, and they're just, probably outside. And just the comparison and the dichotomy of, this boy, his outline here, he's here in Canada, he's here looking at this exhibit of these people. He's looking at their story, whereas we have completely different stories here in Canada, being, diasporic Sikhs. And it just, this really speaks to me for some reason, just because he's a young boy, and whereas on the other side, there's these other people that are left behind. I just wanted to kind of talk about how I came across Mr. Jaswant Singh Kalra. I actually first heard about him through social media, through a post somebody had posted of one of his speeches. And I remembered the exact part because Kalra Mission has reposted that speech of him talking about not letting the darkness surround me. I'm going to establish light around me. And those words really resonated with me and stayed with me, just those few words. And so when I was at this exhibit, Mr. Kalra's words were translated by the exhibit organizers from Punjabi to English. So they had a huge photo, like 6 foot of his speech. And I just stood there for, a couple of minutes, just looking at the words, and just, again, the energy was palpable. So, his spirit was just within those words.
Lavaris Lashan Davaris. This digital painting of Shahid Bhai Jaswant Singh Kalra ji reminds of pyar and sovereignty. It was the pyar they had for Sikhi and the Qawm which drove them to do such a big seva for the Qawm and eventually giving qurbani of their life. In this painting, Bhai Sahib has a very slight smile on his face and his sovereignty reflects right through them. They talked about Santji and other Singhs and Bibiyan in their speech and they said they were Deepaks. I was able to see the same Deepak in them, who stayed enlightened and did not let darkness get close to their soul. This light of sovereignty inside of them challenged the darkness, which inspires the Qawm today to keep the Sangharsh going.
Anandpur Arts, whose name is Navraj Kaur, immigrated to the United States 4 years ago from Punjab. They are a junior in high school and an artist on the side. They started their art page about 3 years ago. Follow them. Since then, they've been making Panthic art. Their main focus is to spread awareness and contribute to the Panth and Sangharsh as much as they can. And now I'm so excited to welcome Noise onto the stage. Yay! All right, I'm gonna awkwardly exit and pretend like I'm not here.
You're still on camera. Okay, so a piece that I want to do today is from my song called Back to Punjab. And the song was released a few years ago and it featured myself and an artist from California named Mandeep Sethi. And in this song, it's essentially like we're writing letters to each other. So he has the first verse in the song and he talks about someone who has left Punjab and has moved to the US. And he's been away from home for so long and he's letting the family back home know about what's been going on with him. And then in my verse, I send him a letter back to let him know what's been going on here in all the years that he's been away. So the verse goes like this. My grandfather was massacred in the streets of Delhi, though I never met him, fam say I got his features in me, flee the city. Grandmother worked the widow colony, but left and took her daughters to Punjab, where the heart in me was made. Raised with my brothers by a farmer who would slave to save up, but underneath his armor had his heart broken. Gun smoking from the false encounters. They put the dark around us, the cause of the loss of thousands. Hard to count them when they dying by their own hands, ingesting the pesticides applied on their own land. The green revolution, abusive regime, revenue streams from liquor taxes, a future of fiends got me stuck. My brothers on the same trap, vein tracks, belts wrapped around their arms, needles in a haystack from heroin to opiates. Tearing at the closely knit and dealing with twice the terror for every bit of hope we get. So I wonder if we're deserving of our fate when the water gets diverted out of state and they're calling us insurgents of our faith. Got me pondering a certain escape beyond the temporary tourniquets they place. So I hold on, grow strong, now my skin is thicker. Punjab awaits its makers, awake us and still I'm with you. A picture from my pen to show you it's getting deep from the 5 rivers where all of my ancestors sleep. That's a song called Back to Punjab. You can check it out, Apple, Spotify, Bandcamp, wherever you check out your music. By myself and Mandeep Sethi, produced by the homie Satnam Singh. So yeah, that's my piece that I wanted to share, just kind of talking about, you know, stuff that's been happening from the 80s and the 70s, that era that Jaswant Singh Kalra worked so hard to document and spread truth about, but then also kind of talking about what happened after that. You know, the contemporary issues we see in Punjab with regards to farmers' rights, farmer suicide, and language rights, water rights, natural resources, all that, which still affects us to this day. So I just want to move the show along. The next artist we have up who will be showcasing some of his work is a close friend of both Rupi and I, from Guelph, Ontario, Jagdeep Singh Rana, who is an artist, a writer, and a teacher. So we're going to getting into his piece that he wants to share.
This piece looks at the violence of the Sikh genocide that ravished the streets of Delhi in November of 1984. This piece is called Victims of 1984 and was done in 2011, charcoal and mixed media on paper. I think of 84 as a pivotal moment that introduced me to many human rights organizers who lived a life of seva to help expose perpetrators of violence in Punjab and Delhi, as well as to bring justice to the families of victims such as Insaf, Malika Kaur, and of course, Jaswant Singh Kalra.
So this piece was created by Azad Singh. And he says that this piece was created for the 1,000 days that our brother Jagtar Singh Johal, also known as Jaggi, has spent in jail without a fair trial. The crime that Jaggi was accused of committing was bringing awareness about the injustice with Sikhs in India from 1984. Similarly, Shaheed Jaswant Singh Khalra was challenging the darkness and shedding light on the thousands of innocent Singhs and Singhaniya that were eliminated by the Indian state. Both Jagtar Singh Johal and Shaheed Jaswant Singh Khalra are a huge inspiration to Azad, and they have impacted his life, and he hopes to put his talents towards raising awareness and dedicating his time to create artwork of our Shaheeds. And just a little bit more information on Azad Singh. He is a 19-year-old artist born and raised in Italy. So
that's so cool.
We're going international with this showcase, a lot of dope artists from all over.
Love it.
And he said he's been pretty much into art for his entire life, and he wants to dedicate his art to our Shaheeds and to the Panth.
Amazing. Also, when we were off, I was just reading all the comments. Everyone in the chat is so cool. I wish I could be in the chat right now talking to all of you, but I love it. I love the love, and I love you all supporting and bigging each other up. So please, please, please keep it up.
Yeah,
and know,
drop in the chat where you're from. Like we've had UK, Italy, India, US, Canada. So drop where you're from in the comments.
I love all of you. Thank you for being amazing. Next up, we have Harjot and Bhagirath. They are born and raised in Seattle, have a passion for undiscovered mediums of Sikh musicology, and are Gavishars.
ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਭਾਈ ਜਸਵੰਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਖਾਲੜਾ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਯਾਦ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਫਤਿਹ ਅਰਜ਼ ਹੈ। ਗੱਜ ਵੱਜ ਕੇ ਆਖਣਾ ਜੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਪਿਛਲੀ ਸਦੀ ਦੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਦਾਨਿਸ਼ਵਰ ਸਰਦਾਰ ਹਰਿੰਦਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਮਹਿਬੂਬ ਨੇ ਬੜਾ ਸੁੰਦਰ ਕਥਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਰੌਸ਼ਨ ਕਰਨ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਜਾਂ ਰਣਾ 'ਚ ਆਪਣੇ ਖਾਬ। The shaheeds brighten their dreams on manifesting battlefields. Kauma kolon mangde apna koi hisab. They ask about accounts of what has been done and whether or not their kaum remembers. Ran shaheed ikallade sunne lakh vare. The shaheeds remain lonesome with their visions untouched for thousands of years. Guru de pende kaamna jat tak safar kare. Until the kaum doesn't embark on the journey of walking in the footsteps of the Guru. Such is the legacy of Shaheed Bhai Jaswant Singh Ji Khalda that forces us to question where we stand today on the much troubled path to justice for the thousands of innocent Sikh youth who were disappeared and made to be never seen again by the Indian state. In commemoration of Khalda Week, we present to you a tribute to Bhai Jaswant Singh Ji Khalda through a dying art of Punjabi storytelling in our generation, Gavishri. The oral Sikh singing tradition was given birth to by Dasmesh Pita nearly 350 years ago from today, and it is through this form of poetry that we would like to remember the call of Bhai Khalda and how he relayed the painful truth of disappeared daughters and sons to the mothers across the land of Punjab. ਉਮੀਦ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਦੋਵਾਂ ਭਰਾਵਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਵੀਸ਼ਰ ਜੋੜੀ ਸਿਆਟਲ ਦੇ ਜੰਪਾਲ ਦਾਸ ਹਰਜੋਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਅਤੇ ਸਾਥੀ ਭਗੀਰਥ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਇਹ ਕਵੀਸ਼ਰੀ ਆਪ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਸੰਦ ਆਵੇਗੀ। ਆਓ ਪਿਆਰ ਅਤੇ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਨਾਲ ਸਰਵਣ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਕਿਰਪਾਲਤਾ ਕਰਨੀ ਜੀ।
ਭਗਤ ਸੂਰਮਾ ਦਾਨ ਦੇ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਲਾ ਕੁੱਖੋਂ ਲਾਲ ਮਾਤਾ ਪੈਦਾ ਕਰੇ ਕੋਈ ਕੋਈ ਮਿੱਠਾ ਬੋਲਣੇ ਤੇ ਜੱਗ ਖੁਸ਼ ਹੋਵੇ ਕੌੜਾ ਬੋਲਿਆ ਕਿਸੇ ਦਾ ਜਰੇ ਕੋਈ ਕੋਈ ਹਰ ਕੋਈ ਆਪਣੀ ਪੰਡ ਉਠਾਵਦਾ ਏ ਪੰਡ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੀ ਸੀਸ ਤੇ ਧਰੇ ਕੋਈ ਕੋਈ ਮਰੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕੁੱਲ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਤੇ ਖਾਤਰ ਕੌਮ ਲਈ ਸੂਰਮਾ ਮਰੇ ਕੋਈ ਕੋਈ ਤੇ ਖਾਤਰ ਕੌਮ ਲਈ ਸੂਰਮਾ ਮਰੇ ਕੋਈ ਕੋਈ
ਲਾਲ ਹਨੇਰੀ ਝੁੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ ਹਾਕਮ ਬੜੇ ਕਰੋਪ ਹੋਏ ਤੜਪਣ ਮਾਮਾ ਪੁੱਤ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਰਾਤੋਂ ਰਾਤ ਅਲੋਪ ਹੋਏ
ਵਾਪਸ ਆ ਜਾਊ ਪੁੱਤਰ ਮੇਰਾ ਤੱਕਦੀਆਂ ਦੀ ਜੋ ਰਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ
ਗਏ ਪੁੱਤ ਨੀ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਉਣੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਖਾਲੜੇ ਮਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ
ਗਏ ਪੁੱਤ ਨੀ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਉਣੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਖਾਲੜੇ ਮਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ
ਲਾਲ ਹਨੇਰੀ ਝੁੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ ਹਾਕਮ ਬੜੇ ਕਰੋਪ ਹੋਏ ਤੜਪਣ ਮਾਵਾ ਪੁੱਤ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਰਾਤੋਂ ਰਾਤ ਅਲੋਪ ਹੋਏ
ਵਾਪਸ ਆ ਜਾਊ ਪੁੱਤਰ ਮੇਰਾ ਤੱਕਦੀਆਂ ਦੀ ਜੋ ਰਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ
ਗਏ ਪੁੱਤ ਨੀ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਉਣੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਖਾਲੜੇ ਮਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ
ਗਏ ਪੁੱਤ ਨੀ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਉਣੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਖਾਲੜੇ ਮਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ
ਹੋ ਕੋਈ ਮਾਰਤਾ ਪੁੱਲ ਦੇ ਲਾਗੇ ਕੋਈ ਪਿੰਡ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਾਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਅੱਤਵਾਦੀ ਪ੍ਰਚਾਰ ਕੇ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਕੈਲਾ ਵਾਰਸ ਸਾੜ ਦਿੱਤਾ
ਬੇਦੋਸ਼ਾਂ ਦਾ ਖੂਨ ਢੋਲ ਕੇ ਕਰਤਾ ਲਾਲ ਹੈਰਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ
ਗਏ ਪੁੱਤ ਨੀ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਉਣੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਖਾਲੜੇ ਮਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ
ਗਏ ਪੁੱਤ ਨੀ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਉਣੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਖਾਲੜੇ ਮਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ
ਹੋ ਸੋਲ ਫੁੱਲਾਂ ਜਿਆਂ ਜਿਸਮਾਂ ਉੱਤੇ ਲਾ ਅੱਗਾਂ ਸਾੜਿਆ ਏ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਲਾਲ ਡਾਡੀਆਂ ਜਿਸਮ ਕਈਆਂ ਦਾ ਪਾੜਿਆ ਏ
ਕਹਿਰ ਦੇਖ ਕੇ ਅੰਬਰ ਰੋਇਆ ਕੱਟੀਆਂ ਲੱਤਾਂ ਬਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ
ਗਏ ਪੁੱਤ ਨੀ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਉਣੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਖਾਲੜੇ ਮਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ
ਗਏ ਪੁੱਤ ਨੀ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਉਣੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਖਾਲੜੇ ਮਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ
ਕੁਝ ਪਿੰਡਾਂ ਦੇ ਪੁਲਾਂ ਤੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਕੁਝ ਪਿੰਡਾਂ ਦੇ ਪੁਲਾਂ ਤੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਮਾਰ ਗੋਲੀਆਂ ਰੋੜ ਛੱਡੇ ਜ਼ਕਰੀਏ ਦੇ ਸਬਰ ਕਾੜ ਵੀ ਇੰਨਾ ਜ਼ਾਲਮਾਂ ਤੋੜ ਛੱਡੇ
ਰੱਬ ਵੀ ਹੁਣ ਟਾਲੇ ਤਾਂ ਟਾਲੇ ਸਿਰ ਤੇ ਪਈਆਂ ਬਲਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ
ਗਏ ਪੁੱਤ ਨੀ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਉਣੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਖਾਲੜੇ ਮਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ
ਗਏ ਪੁੱਤ ਨੀ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਉਣੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਖਾਲੜੇ ਮਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ
ਹੋ ਜੋ ਕੁਝ ਬਚਿਆ ਰੱਖ ਬਚਾ ਕੇ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਤੇਥੋਂ ਖੁੱਸ ਜਾਏ ਨਾ ਪੁੱਤ ਗਵਾ ਕੇ ਲੱਭਦੀ ਤੇਰੀ ਕਿਸਮਤ ਰੁੱਸ ਜਾਏ ਨਾ
ਸਦਾ ਮਾਸ ਦੀ ਭੁੱਖ ਰਹਿੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਕੁੱਤਿਆਂ ਅਤੇ ਕਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ
ਗਏ ਪੁੱਤ ਨੀ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਉਣੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਖਾਲੜੇ ਮਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ
ਗਏ ਪੁੱਤ ਨੀ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਉਣੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਖਾਲੜੇ ਮਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ
ਓ ਹੁਣ ਉਡੀਕ ਤੂੰ ਕਰਨਾ ਮਾਏ ਲਾਲ ਤੇਰਾ ਹੁਣ ਮੁੜਨਾ ਨੀ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਲੀਡਰ ਆਗੂ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਲੱਭਣ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਤੁਰਨਾ ਨੀ
ਪੂਰੀਆਂ ਕਰ ਲੈ ਅੰਤਮ ਰਸਮਾਂ ਸੱਦ ਕੇ ਭੈਣ ਭਰਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ
ਗਏ ਪੁੱਤ ਨੀ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਉਣੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਖਾਲੜੇ ਮਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ
ਗਏ ਪੁੱਤ ਨੀ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਉਣੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਖਾਲੜੇ ਮਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ
ਹੋ 25,000 ਤੋਂ ਗਿਣਤੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ 25,000 ਤੋਂ ਗਿਣਤੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਕੈਲਾ ਵਾਰਸ ਸਾੜੇ ਜੋ ਹੋਰ ਸੈਂਕੜੇ ਜੇਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਾਂਗ ਜੱਗੀ ਦੇ ਤਾੜੇ ਜੋ
ਗੁਰਸੇਵਕ ਨੀ ਆਸ ਰਹਿਮ ਦੀ
ਮੁੱਕਦੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਗਏ ਪੁੱਤ ਨੀ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਉਣੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਖਾਲੜੇ ਮਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਗਏ ਪੁੱਤ ਨੀ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਉਣੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਖਾਲੜੇ ਮਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਰਦਾਰ ਹਰਿੰਦਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਮਹਿਬੂਬ ਦੀਆਂ ਲਿਖਤਾਂ ਵੱਲ ਮੁੜ ਝਾਤ ਮਾਰਦਿਆਂ ਹੋਇਆਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਵਰਣਨ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਬੇਪਤ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਕੌਮਾਂ ਦੇ ਘਰ ਦੂਰ ਫਰੇਬੀ ਧਰਤੇ The homes of dishonored people are dislocated far away from their roots by the deceit of our times. Bad naseeb पैरां दे हेठां खाक विशैली करके, underneath our unfortunate feet, poisonous soil is indulging. Muh zor samana kamme, mate sakega tainu. But even these headstrong and stubborn times cannot erase our existence. Apni pat pachan lave je lad mahi da fadke. Only if we recognize our true honor by holding on to the cloak of the beloved Guru. As per Bhai Khalda Ji's words, the Khalsa Panth was created to protect the whole world's human rights. But if we cannot even defend our own, then we cannot depict the correct portrayal of the Khalsa's image to the globe. Let's all recognize our duties in a never-ending path to raising awareness of human rights violations by the world's largest democracy. We need to keep marching, believing, and building. Our generation has the burden to uplift of countless souls who fought and died for our right to exist. Our history serves testament to the fact, so long as we have the spirit of love and justice that Guru Nanak Sahib first enshrined in us since 1469, no worldly power or its subsequent oppression can subdue us. Sikh history is irrational. One person alone discovering nearly 25,000 disappearances is irrational. We weren't always kings, but we were still free. We faced torture that is unheard of and unknown to the history of humanity, but we remained sovereign even if enslaved. Our itihas teaches us that it does not matter if we live 100 years or 20. What matters is if we breathe the Guru-led vision of justice in between our lungs, like Bhai Khalda did nearly 25 years ago from today. It was because of the power of Shabd Guru, Dhan Shri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, that even after abducting and cutting Bhai Khalda to pieces, his legacy and work cannot be killed. May Guru Maharaj bless us with the willpower of Lambi Nadr Nihaliya, so that we can cultivate from the grassroots up the existence of our diaspora's generation with the enduring legacy of Bhai Jaswant Singh Ji Khalda and his strong family, which is continuing his fight even today. ਭੁੱਲ ਚੁੱਕ ਦੀ ਮਾਫੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਵਿਸ਼ਰੀ ਜਥਾ ਖਿਮਾ ਦਾ ਜਾਚਕ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਕਲਗੀਧਰ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਦੇ ਸਨਮੁਖ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਦੀ ਅਗਨੀ, ਇਹ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਦੀ ਅੱਗ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਸਾਡੀਆਂ ਸੀਨਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਸਾਡੀਆਂ ਮਨ ਮੰਦਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਸਾਡੀਆਂ ਦਿਲਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਰਕਰਾਰ ਰਹੇ, ਬਲਦੀ ਰਹੇ, ਬੁਝੇ ਨਾ। ਇਹੀ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਲਗੀਧਰ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਦੇ ਚਰਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਡੀ ਹੈ। ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਸੰਕਟਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੌਮ ਅੱਜ ਡੁੱਬੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ, ਅੱਜ ਗਿਰੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਸੰਕਟਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਕਲਗੀਧਰ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਆਪ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੱਢ ਸਕਣ ਅਤੇ ਅਗਲਾ ਰਾਹ, ਅਗਲਾ ਮੁਖ ਮੋੜ ਸਕਣ। ਆਓ ਅੰਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਕੇ ਕਵਿਸ਼ਰੀ ਜਥਾ ਫਤਿਹ ਅਰਜ਼ ਕਰਨ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਗੱਜ ਵੱਜ ਕੇ ਆਖਣਾ ਜੀ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
ਹਨੇਰੇ ਨੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਜ਼ੋਰ ਵਿਖਾਉਣ ਲਈ ਧਰਤੀ ਤੇ ਪੈਰ ਪਾਇਆ, ਪਰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਦੂਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਝੌਂਪੜੀ ਚੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਦੀਪਕ ਨੇ ਸਿਰ ਚੁੱਕਿਆ। ਉਸਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਹਨੇਰੇ ਨੂੰ ਚੈਲੰਜ ਕਰਦਾ, ਹੋਰ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ ਤਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਾਗੇ ਲੱਗਣ ਦਿਆਂਗਾ, ਆਪਣੇ ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ ਤਾਂ ਚਾਨਣ ਕਾਇਮ ਕਰਾਂਗਾ। ਤਾਂ ਉਸ ਦੀਪਕ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖ ਕੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਰ ਝੁੱਗੀ ਝੌਂਪੜੀ 'ਚ ਇੱਕ ਦੀਪਕ ਉੱਠਿਆ ਤੇ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਹੈਰਾਨ ਰਹਿ ਗਈ ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਪਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਹਨੇਰੇ ਨੂੰ ਪੱਥਰ ਨੂੰ ਰੋਕਿਆ ਤੇ ਲੋਕ ਦੇਖ ਸਕੇ।
That video just makes me feel so warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, I love it.
I love it.
So well done.
It's also just like so comforting in like this deep, soulful way to hear his voice. And it just makes me want to like get up and fight.
And just seeing everybody come together too. It's like the beauty of community.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. That incredible video was put together by Sahib, who's an incredible artist, and we are such big fans. He's a videographer and photographer born and raised in Punjab. His goal is to show people the real side of Punjab apart from news and mainstream media. For this video, Sahib was really inspired by the work Jaswant Singh Kalra did for Punjab. Seeing people light up candles and lamps at the local Gurdwara on Bandi Chor Divas reminded Sahib of Jaswant Singh Kalra's speech about challenging the darkness with light. So he wanted to make something to remind everyone of our beautiful history and inspire them to challenge the injustice.
And that is the last piece of art that we're sharing for this showcase. And honestly, I couldn't think of a better way to end this. That piece was...
It says it all. We just had to end with his voice.
Yeah.
So thank you. Honestly, I love this whole event so much, but I love the chat kind of a little bit more. So I'm going to probably go back in there and talk to y'all for a little bit because I love you. This is like the part of the show where I just don't know what else to say and I just keep saying I love you because I'm full of so much emotion.
Well, I guess a little bit of additional programming notes because this showcase was part of a week's worth of programming by Kalra Mission. So if you want to check out more, you can go to bit.ly/Kalra-register. So you don't want to miss out. Tomorrow there'll be a special documentary screening of Punjab Disappeared, Identifying the Unidentified, with a panel with the filmmakers, which should be really cool. And then on Saturday, there will be a kirtan as well as a panel with Jaswant Singh Kalra's family, as well as some folks who are involved in the legal case. So some really cool events, some really important events to follow along with for the rest of the week. So you can check out Kalra Mission on Instagram and register for all these events. It's been incredible.
Thank you to the organizers. A very, very small team of dedicated volunteers have been working so hard over the past couple of weeks to put this entire week together. So thank you for reminding all of us to gather around light and love. And we're so excited and honored to be a part of it. And until next time, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.